Hello everyone and welcome to Guild Wars 2 Daily. Today we're going to be looking at a couple of servers, some weird stuff going on with the servers actually at this point on the list, which I was originally thinking of skipping over, but then I thought, hey, why don't we just explain all of it anyway. Before we get into that, the footage in the background will be me running around in Guild Wars 1 in the server locations I can for this episode, but not all of the places we're going to be talking about are actually accessible in Guild Wars 1, so you might find that we spend quite a lot of time on just the two locations, but I'm hoping to throw in some cutscenes there as well for some of the story bits that I'm always talking about on these videos but never actually show you, so we'll be able to see the cutscenes too. Before I start with the servers, just wanted to say that map video that I put out yesterday, I'm surprised that it's doing as well as it did. I didn't think it would do that great because it was quite one of the nerdier episodes I think we've done, and it is just a map on the screen for 30 minutes, but hey, you guys really liked it, you sunk your teeth into it. I wanted everyone to be quite critical and to look at it, and I've had some great feedback and lots of people have been saying some really interesting stuff about it, far more than in fact I actually said on the video, which is really cool. I would suggest if you are really interested in that, go to the forums, Guild Wars 2 Guru, anywhere you want. There's a lot of cool stuff people are talking about, and in fact even another map's been found in like that same section. Somebody contacted me earlier and said, hey, I went and checked up the actual in-game stuff to make sure this wasn't like a big hoax that someone was playing, and they said that they actually found another map on there too, which I can put on the video actually, why not? And it's just another map that doesn't look like Tyria at all. I mean, what the hell that map is, who knows? Is that another world? Is it the Mists? What is it? No idea, but it's very cool and there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm glad you guys liked it anyway. I'm not going to ramble for too long, but yeah, so servers. First server that I'm going to talk about today is a German server. We've actually got two that we'll be starting off with, and the next one down the list is Drakkar Lake, and this was a very big place in Guild Wars 1, and not just a big place as far as Guild Wars 1 story is concerned, but actually, even though we won't be able to necessarily access it come Guild Wars 2, it's really had quite a significant impact, the stuff that happened there in the lore as far as playing a Norn will go. So this was an area that was introduced in Eye of the North. It's a place in the far Shiver Peaks. So this was the section of the Shiver Peaks that was only revealed when the expansion came out and ArenaNet started to establish the plots and races and stories for Guild Wars 2. It was one of the earlier places you got to go to in the far Shiver Peaks, and it featured, as far as Guild Wars 1's concerned, the game, it was a large explorable area, and it featured in the center of it a big frozen lake. It was solid with ice, and the entire explorable area, which had a lot more in it than just this lake in the middle, was all named after Drakkar Lake. We actually get the name Drakkar Lake just from the Norn in the area and that map. We don't actually know why the lake is called Drakkar Lake. We don't know explicitly what Drakkar has actually been referring to. And in fact, in this big frozen lake, you could see in Guild Wars 1, there was a hidden massive creature that was frozen under the ice there. A lot of us in Guild Wars 1 actually thought that this could quite literally be Jormag under the ice. We thought that we were looking at Jormag, and we thought that because in Eye of the North, where ArenaNet knew that they had these 5 Elder Dragons that they were introducing to the storyline, they seemed to put hints around the landscapes of these Elder Dragons. One in particular we saw was Primordus. He was a big part of the story, and you could actually see him quite clearly there at the end of the Eye of the North storyline. But in other regions, you could see these great hulking beasts that seem to be potentially the Elder Dragons. For example, there is one in the Char homelands up in the Blood Legion lands, and a lot of people still think that that is Kralkatorrik that we could see there up on the hills. So we thought that this was Jormag. This was the Norn equivalent, or this was the Norn Elder Dragon. You could see it down in the lake. We thought that was Jormag, but that was quite quickly announced that that wasn't the case anymore by the developers pretty fast. They said actually that that wasn't Jormag, that was something else, and probably just a champion of Jormag. So then, as soon as we heard that, we thought, right, if that's not Jormag, what is it? And so we ended up calling this creature under the ice Drakkar. That was the name we gave to it, and we assumed that this was one of Jormag's Elder Dragon champions, and that was pretty much that, until at least very recently, because now in Guild Wars 2 in the beta, you can actually speak to a character in Holbrak that says that Jormag, the Elder Dragon, actually rose up out of Drakkar Lake. So that goes back on what the developers told us a couple of years ago, that a thing in the lake wasn't actually Jormag, but now we find out in-game that Jormag was in the lake. Well, was Jormag lower down in the lake or what? It's all a little bit confusing right now. But whatever the situation, there was something slightly more interesting that happened with the lore here at Drakkar Lake, in that for the main story of Eye of the North, we found out that one of the Norn who travelled around with us, one of the heroes, this woman called Jorah, who was a great hero to the Norn come Guild Wars 2's time, she had lost her ability to become the bear and transform, as Norn typically have that ability. She'd lost that ability because she went to this lake with her brother, Svanir. The Norn have typically avoided going close to Drakkar Lake because they appreciate that it's got bad foreboding magic energy or whatever around there that they generally just try to avoid. But when Jorah was younger, she and her brother actually went onto the lake to check it out, and this magic damaged her and she lost her ability to become the bear. Far worse than magic in the area also that seems to be coming from either Jormag himself or his elder dragon, what we're now calling Drakkar. This magic that came from this thing in the lake also did something far worse to her brother, who became entirely corrupted by it and became the Norn bear. So while Jorah lost her ability to become a bear, her brother permanently became a bear that was corrupted and evil, and he was essentially the very first Ice Brood. In Guild Wars 2, that's one of the main things that the Norn are fighting, the Ice Brood, corrupted things that have gone to fight Jormag and have ended up being turned under the dragon's sway and are now fighting for him. Well, Svanir was, as far as we can see, one of the earliest, if not the first, Ice Brood to exist, and in Guild Wars 2's time, you will meet a group of Norn calling themselves the Sons of Svanir, who seek to live under this guy's footsteps. They seek to please the dragon, and they worship dragon, as they call it, as other Norn would worship spirits of the wild, which is very interesting, and all leads back to Drakkar Lake. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Guild Wars 2, and there was a lot of stuff going on in Guild Wars 1 that all tied into this one location. It was this cool, mysterious place where you could see a creature under the ice that still, to this day, it's still a little bit ambiguous as to what exactly is down there, because we're having conflicting reports from here and from here. But it was a cool place, very exciting. I remember when Guild Wars 1 was out and some people got rid of the textures of the actual lake so we could get a clear view of this thing that was under there, which otherwise you could only get very murky screenshots of. It was just very, very cool. So there is a server now named after Drakkar Lake. Pretty nice. The next German server, which by now the footage is probably rolled past onto, is Dajinar Bastion. There's a little bit less to say about this because this is an Alolan location that not that much really happened. Do you remember in the last server episode I talked about the hidden city of Adashim and how two of the merchant princes of Vabi, when nightfall had come and began to descend on Alona, two of these guys fled and hid in the hidden city while one other prince went off to try and defend and fight Varesh Ossa and Nightfall on his own? Well, the Dajinar Bastion is where this last prince went. Prince Amter the Mighty, he was the one that wasn't a coward, and he decided, no, I'm going to fight and I'm going to defend my land. The law for these merchant princes is actually quite cool. Vabi is a very rich province, and it is governed and ran by these merchant princes. But two of them really have very wealthy, very nice, very favourable lands within Vabi, while the third one, Amter the Mighty, had always kind of got the shit end of the stick. He always had the really bad area of Vabi. He had kind of a wasteland area. He had a part that harpies were constantly attacking, and he, through his time as a leader of Vabi, basically learnt to fight, and he was the one doing the dirty work. So when nightfall came, he kind of just assumed the same position. The other two were useless and ran off, but he decided he could fight. Well, foolishly, in fact, he decided he could fight on his own. So he retreated to his citadel in this kind of section of Vabi that he governed, and nightfall came, and Varesh Ossa tried to kick him out. This was the Dajinar Bastion, and one of the missions in Guild Wars 1 involves you, the players, going to the Bastion and helping him defend it from the hordes that are coming at him. It was actually a very fun mission. It's one of the more fun missions if I think about Guild Wars 1. As far as mechanics goes, it had some really interesting stuff where you'd be defending and there'd be multiple places that enemies would be attacking you from, and they could break through various layers of defenses and get deeper and deeper in. It was really cool. The way it was structured though, you kind of were encouraged to just restart the mission if they ever broke through the first barrier, so that kind of sucked because then you'd lose the master reward. So honestly, I've never actually played the mission and been fighting deeper inside the Bastion, as the game is initially, I suppose, designed to have you do, which kind of sucks, but the mechanics are there, and it is one of those standout missions that is quite fun and quite interesting to play. And as I said in the previous episode, you actually get a choice as a player. Where do you go? Do you go to the hidden city, or do you go and help defend this other prince's life as he fights? Which is really cool. So yeah, that's another one of the locations. Drakkar Lake is a German server, as is Dajinar Bastion. Then let's move over to the American side. The American side's a bit weird for today and a bit shorter for today, because these next couple of servers on the list for the Americans ones aren't actually places like the other servers on the list. These aren't actual in-game areas for Guild Wars 1, so I'm not going to be able to get any footage of these. The first one is a place called Bower's Pass. I believe that's how you say it, Bower. This is one of the servers, as I mentioned when we first started doing the server stuff. This is one of the ones that's just simply named. It's a new place that we've never heard of, that didn't exist in Guild Wars 1, but is partly named after one of the developers on the Guild Wars 2 team. So Bower, this is actually named after Terza, I think is how you say her name. I work with someone now who's got a name similar to that. But Terza, I believe, Terza Bower, she came onto the team while Nightfall was being developed, I want to say, and she was like an environment artist. In fact, I'm going to look at Wiki and be sure about that. Oh, yes. Spot on. Yeah, so this is Terza Bower, and apparently she's now got a server named Bower's Pass. Whether that will appear in Guild Wars 2 or not, we don't know yet. I haven't seen it in the betas. I'm pretty sure it's not there in the betas, and it might not be in the game at launch, but that is one of the servers. Obviously, no one's really going to have much of a connection as far as Guild Wars 1's concerned to that, but maybe you like what this developer did, or you're familiar with their work, and you want to go into that server. The next one as well is another one called Beers Falls, which doesn't exist in either Guild Wars 1 or the Guild Wars 2 beta, and it's not named after a developer. Very weird. Where is Beers Falls? What's going on there? I think it probably will be in Guild Wars 2, but that's certainly a new one there. I wonder why ArenaNet went and named one of them this, which is something nobody recognises at all, instead of another one of the vast amount of Guild Wars 1 locations. But in any case, they did do that. Maybe you just like the sound of that name. That was another US one. And because those two were kind of crappy, the third one on the list is the Blazeridge Mountains. This is a US server. The Blazeridge Mountains weren't a place we saw in Guild Wars 1, and they're not even a place we'll see in Guild Wars 2 as far as being able to actually adventure and travel on them at the launch of the game, but they do have a lot of lore about them. The Blazeridge Mountains define the eastern border of Ascalon. So when you look at Ascalon, you've got the Shiver Peaks to the west of it. Well, why does Ascalon end there on the east side? It's because of this mountain range here, the Blazeridge Mountains. And there were hints for a while that maybe the Blazeridge Mountains also stretch somewhat round to the south of Ascalon too. There's kind of lore that suggests Ebenhawk was built in the Blazeridge Mountains, which is actually to the south and not to the east. But this is kind of the mountain range, at the very least, that defines some of Ascalon's borders. And we've got some lore about them. We know that, for example, that since Kralgatoric flew over Ascalon, it's kind of disrupted ogres in the area, and they've been forced to move around the Blazeridge Mountains now. And also, we know that over the other side of the Blazeridge Mountains is the Ash Legion homeland of the Char. The Char have actually got 3 homelands. They had Ascalon, which they've always claimed to have back, and now finally they've won. They had the Blood Legion homelands, which are far up in the north that we got to see in Eye of the North, and they've also got the Ash Legion homelands, which are to the east over the Blazeridge Mountains, which is quite cool actually. So they've got a lot of places. The mountains themselves, though, I'm sure we'll be able to go on eventually in Guild Wars 2. I'm sure that the world will be expanded off to that side, especially with the new map. We've seen the new world map, but for the launch of the game, we might be able to go like up the foothills a little bit, but all the way up them and across them, certainly not. I wouldn't expect much. And they're not very high mountains either. From looking at the maps, they're not snow-capped. They're nothing like the Shiver Peaks. They're certainly smaller, but they are a mountain range nonetheless. And hopefully they'll have a cool and distinct environment there when you compare it to the Shiver Peaks. But right now, because we've not actually been there in-game, we can't say too much just yet. But it's a cool place, and it's one of those that I've always been excited by because it's one of the borders of the game. And until this new map came out, it was always one of the more mysterious things, because it's like, oh, as soon as you can go to the Blazeridge Mountains, you can go even further past them. But there you go, guys. That's a fair few servers for today. The US ones weren't amazing, but next time we will be able to look at some much better ones. Bloodstone Fen, which I've just been writing about in the lore summary today, which has kind of got me quite excited. Ballis Pass, lots of cool stuff. So anyway, I guess I will see you for another server episode at some point. Probably won't be tomorrow. We might do something more mechanics-y based tomorrow. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.